Good evening, y'all. I hope everyone is having a very happy Monday. It is that time again for some great history and commentary on current events. It is time for Mason Dixon Podcast. I always want to mention, y'all, that the views and opinions expressed here on Mason Dixon Podcast and on MAD are our own and just our own views, and they do not represent the views and opinions of any other person, group, or organization. Remember, y'all, that stars help us put up statues. So for those of y'all that want to help out here, please click that stars button down below and send us some stars so we can continue to put up new memorials. So a lot has happened in the last week. I know as the Paris Olympics are going on, it's causing a lot of controversy. As always, it tends to be the USA that is always the laughingstock of the entire country. And we tend to just set new records at doing this. Every single time or every single Olympics or it's a major world event, here is the link that I will be commenting about. So how many of y'all saw the Olympics with the Last Supper? Great to see you, Mr. Jesse. Always a pleasure, my friend. So at the Olympics, there was this big controversy when the Last Supper was depicted using drag queens. So drag queens, did not know they had any connection to the Last Supper. And then when people started, calling this out, and this was not just Americans, this was people all over the entire world saying, what the heck is going on in America? Oh my gosh, this is wrong. The other side turns it around and they say they were depicting some kind of mythical Greek thing. I mean, y'all, did they think that we were born yesterday? Everything about that drag show was Last Supper-like. If maybe some of the people were dressed a little bit differently, they could have at least stood a chance with that lie. But no, it was pretty darn bad. So I'm going to share my screen so we can cover this one article about the after effect. So the Vatican, I was actually shocked to see this because usually the Vatican has not been doing well in the last about 10 years, I would say, since the new Pope took that position, where he has been decently woke, more progressive compared to the last few popes. He has upset quite a bit of Catholics. This right here was actually quite interesting, where the Vatican was, quote, saddened by certain scenes at the Olympic ceremony. And the ceremony depicted a mock Last Supper with drag queens. So it immediately had criticism, and it actually saddened Pope Francis. I was not expecting to see something like that because normally he's been really quiet on those issues. But I think that everybody has a limit. And right now, seeing what's kind of going on in the world and seeing, where we are with just having this vast deviance and, craziness occur. So the statement said right here that there should be no allusions ridiculing the religious convictions of many people. The Holy See was saddened by certain scenes during the open ceremony of Paris Olympic Games and can only join the voices that have been raised in recent days to deplore the offense caused to many Christians and believers of other religions, the statement said. And let's be real, y'all, it was really primarily one religion that was attacked, Christianity, might even say Catholicism as well. But right here is, right in front of your eyes when they did that mock scene was absolutely deplorable. That's part of their drag show right there that they have going on. I mean, why isn't this, condemned? Instead, it's celebrated and they think that that's, appropriate. And then some of the scenes that went on, the drag stuff they had at the Olympics was extremely dirty. It was provocative. It was raunchy. It was downright ratchet, and I think that finally people that were, I guess, left-leaning, kind of, I guess, more center-left are saying, yeah, this is too much now. At a prestigious event where the whole world comes together to share common values, there should be no allusions ridiculing the religious convictions of many people. The freedom of expression, which is clearly not called into question here, is limited by respect for others. And clearly it turned heads when it included a headless Marie Antoinette early on. again, you're having more of the satanic symbolism and whatnot. And it was interesting because I myself have not watched the Olympics in quite some time. I know some people did, and I was getting phone calls from friends and then a social media blowing up saying, did you see the Olympics? Did you see what went on? And I go, no, I don't watch them. I have more productive things to do. And oddly enough, here we have it on TV. And it's just really comical how you have the left that's been really silent on this. And then most independents, third parties and conservatives were saying, look, this is wrong, y'all. This is really a problem here. And let me just say that if this was just about any other religion, this would have been condemned in a New York Minute, and it probably would have been pulled off the air. There would have been a more broad public apology and whatnot. It would have actually had an effect, if you will. Great to see you, Christian Lee. How are you? Mr. Christian Lee from the amazing Alamo City Guards, Sons of Confederate Veterans Camp. So as we go on with the whole parade and all that, it was quite interesting, the stuff that they saw. And right here, here's where you have the thing, y'all, because as we know, politicians tend to, want to cover things up and lie and do all that. And this has been going on for a while. Usually if somebody has to try to cover up something so blatant, it's obvious they're lying. So with some of the Olympics organizers that were behind the drag show, one spokesperson did admit to the New York Post that the creative director, Thomas Jolly, did take inspiration from Da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper, while others claimed that it was just Greek mythology, which was absolutely false. It was not Greek mythology. It's, and probably the person who mentioned that about the creative director doing that has probably been fired by now, knowing how that, would happen. And I think it was kind of their litmus test to see, okay, we've already taken society this far with this deviance. Let's see if we can push it a step further and use deviance to mock a religious symbolism and religious scene. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing happen more and more, is you're going to start seeing more testing of the water like that, more of those tests where they say, let's do this, let's see what the outcry is. And if we lie about it, we'll just kind of go from there and whatnot. And as we go on, you had quite a bit of things going on. And this is an interesting poll, which I'm curious to know about. If any of the U.S. athletes will boycott the closing ceremonies. Because if this was the opening ceremony, who knows? Will the closing ceremony be worse? Will it be about the same? Will the organizers kind of redo some things because of the controversy and drama that had occurred during the opening ceremony? Who knows? I'm going to guess and say, I guess like 60%, 64%. Maybe they will. And we'll see. So that was quite interesting. We also had some other interesting news happen as well, because, it was interesting. We saw what happened in 2017 and all that with attacking memorials and, these radical left-wing groups like the NAACP, BLM, most of the Democrats with their blatant attack on history, not appreciating American history, not appreciating any of that, calling for monuments to be vandalized, destroyed, what have you. But then it's interesting because when this whole nonsense happened last year with Israel being attacked and whatnot, a lot of the left was saying, oh, well, we didn't see it, we didn't acknowledge it. But now that Jewish statues are being attacked and, attempted to be removed and whatnot, the left is still silent, while only a small faction of them even mentioned a little bit of disgust. Right here, here's an article from the Times of Israel. There's an Anne Frank statue that is in Amsterdam, and that has been the recent attack for several, vandalism attempts. It was badly vandalized again for the second time, and it was quite interesting to see the response. It's been silence from anybody. So right here, it says Anne Frank statue in Amsterdam Park vandalized again with pro-Palestine graffiti. Why is that allowed to happen, y'all? It has been defaced the second time in less than a month. And it's really telling y'all because we have all these, Palestinian riots occurring across the country. We saw them at multiple college campuses. So this seems to be going on repeatedly, and there is nobody denouncing it. So, you have years and years of people attacking American history, attacking art, going into museums the last 2 years and throwing paint on paintings or soup on paintings and, attacking priceless works of art. So quite interesting that, the left and all of these rioters, they continue to attack these memorials and they don't get punished. Nobody has been put in jail for that. But finally, it's a little too late. You're seeing the same groups attacking Jewish memorials. They're attacking cemeteries. They're just doing this for no reason because they are homegrown terrorists. And, when you start seeing this pattern of this pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian graffiti, maybe it's time to actually start denouncing it, because it's hilarious how the left will usually go on the same playbook saying, oh, we're victims of hate crimes and yada, yada, yada. And George Washington was racist. You better take his monument down and what have you. They are allowed to do that. But then when their party is the one that's actually attacking people based on their religion, they're the ones that are guilty of the very thing that they are accusing everyone else of. Clearly, these left-wing groups are engaging in blatant anti-Semitism, in some ways racism, the way they've attacked memorials, as well as just about everything they accuse fundamental conservatives about. So quite interesting. And then what you're probably going to see is you're going to have the members of that group say, oh, Anne Frank's offensive, take her down, yada, yada, yada. I mean, she was an innocent young girl at a time when horrible things were going on. And, she wrote a diary and all this, and, she has ties to Amsterdam. Why is that monument targeted? She was targeted because of her religion. Moses Ezekiel, who was an American soldier, he was a graduate of VMI. He was a veteran artist and all that. And he was attacked because of his religions as well. And they removed his gravestone from Arlington. So we're at a position now where, based on your religion, if you are Catholic, Christian, or Jewish, your religion's under attack 24/7. Your memorials, your gravestones can be removed, apparently. But yet, if you're into Satanism and dark things and deviance, you're celebrated. At what point do people actually draw the line and say, we've had enough of this? And if you look at the statue right here, she was a Holocaust victim, famous for her diary. And right here, the base of the statue was spray painted with the slogan "Free Gaza," while the girls' hands were painted with the same blood red color, most likely what they symbolize blood on their hands. Police have opened an investigation in the most recent defacement, which likely occurred overnight between Saturday and Sunday. An Amsterdam police spokesman told AFP, adding that no suspect had yet to be identified. So, of course, as usual, this goes on. They don't find a suspect. And this is the result of years and years of rioters not getting punished. So what it's time to do at some point is time to actually enforce the laws. Have stricter penalties, up the penalties, make it so that if somebody vandalizes a memorial, they're spending 10 years in a federal prison. This is something that the USA should have done a long time ago. This is something that Europe has got to get stronger on doing and enforcing the law. But we are starting to see people in England, they are waking up and they are fighting against this nonsense. We have been under attack with this CRT rhetoric, this just anti-history, anti-culture rhetoric, iconoclasm. People are finally saying enough is enough. And it's quite interesting because the actual rioters, when they riot, they get away with it. But then you have smaller groups of patriots who stand up for their rights and for the history and for all that. And then all of a sudden they get called rioters and they get attacked. That's exactly what's been occurring around the world. It's that double standard. And that's the horrible graffiti that occurred. And as usual, you don't have any officials on the left that are denouncing what occurred. You have them just remaining quiet, which is the most easy thing to do. And there you go. And sadly enough, it was vandalized in quite a symbolic way because August 4th marks 80 years to the day that the Franks were arrested and after their hiding spot was discovered. And it marks the second time in less than a month that the statue had been targeted. So it had been vandalized on July 9th, and the municipality called for increased protection of the site with video surveillance cameras as well as nighttime lighting. Apparently, those procedures don't work, as we've seen in this situation right here. And really just the response of, people thinking that throwing paint on a memorial is okay, yada, 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 that's still vandalism, y'all. And it's quite interesting how that's become the rhetoric. The rhetoric has been, oh, well, it can be cleaned. Well, not knowing that paint can actually damage memorials. And there's a certain process to clean a memorial. And the other problem, too, is that you have people saying, oh, well, because that monument's offensive, let's just take it down. Let's relocate it, this and that. Yeah, that's not the answer either. I think a more proper response would be to actually make sure that people don't act like hooligans, that they act civilized, and that the law is actually enforced, that there are penalties for defacing art and defacing memorials and graves. You don't find anybody on the right that's destroying monuments or spray painting them or destroying graves. I mean, of course, you have Nikki Haley, who is anti-heritage. That's a destruction of a different kind, as well as George Bush, because he was the one that actually got this cancel culture started, more or less. Amen, Mr. Christian. And what's really interesting is that, people tend to be dense. Not a lot of people study history or know history or can appreciate art. And ultimately, if you pretty much told somebody that there was a, Yankee monument, that if you just said, oh, that's a Confederate monument, I guarantee within like 5 seconds, you'd have a little rioting mob ready to tear it down and calling for its removal. It's always kind of hilarious because if you ever put a battle flag at a Yankee monument, somebody will automatically assume, oh, it must be a Confederate memorial, without doing the history. And that shows that people tend to be very dense in that area. I also had a really cool article. It was written by my buddy Matt Miller. He is the proud owner of the Confederate Shop in Virginia. It is a beautiful store. It is loved by everybody in Virginia and all around the country. We've had people as far as, I believe, Hawaii come out to that store. There was a gentleman from Hawaii who went to Lee Jackson Day, then went to the store after. A lot of my friends from Ohio go there. I go there every single year when I go to the Lee Jackson Memorial Park. And it's kind of funny, y'all, because as we're continuing to raise more mega beautiful battle flags across the South and Virginia, people were complaining about the flags, but at the same time, they're expecting us just to roll over. It's hilarious how they remove a very beautiful, subtle monument. And when we put up a nice, beautiful Confederate battle flag, they're even more offended. And the flags are on private property, but you can see them. And that's what I love about it, y'all. That's right, the Confederate Shop. I'll get a link to that website for y'all. Only the cool people shop at the Confederate Shop. They got really good books and they got education material. If any families homeschool, they got 2 amazing United States histories curriculum that they sell there. So it's all around a very nice shop to go to and to visit if any of y'all are in Virginia. Okay. So I'm going to pull up the one article that Matt wrote recently. I thought it was a very good article. And I'm super proud of him. He is just a young, amazing patriot, and he keeps fighting and leading the charge and has been a true inspiration for me. All right, so here's a link to the blog where y'all can find more about this. So it's called The Myth of the Kindly President Lincoln. Quite often, modern narratives of our beloved Civil War history paints quite a different picture than reality. This is particularly true with one of America's most well-known presidents, Abraham Lincoln. We know for a fact that Lincoln was a white supremacist and that he wanted to send free blacks back to Africa, even 4 days prior to his death. We know he handled lawsuits involving runaway slaves in order to return them to their masters, and we understand that his Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single slave, or slave in northern occupied territories, or states that still remained within the Union. What else could it take to blow the lid off the never-ending Lincoln myth? Or should we say the myth of the kindly President Lincoln? Y'all, I was actually speaking at a Lincoln dinner, so it was quite interesting. You go to a Lincoln dinner and, you're sitting there and then they're very selective about Lincoln's speeches. They don't understand a lot of the documents at the time, and they're very selective about the Emancipation Proclamation. During the Lincoln dinner, they only read bits and pieces of the Gettysburg Address, and they tried to tie it into making Lincoln seem like he was the same as George Washington, which I was just going there like, oy vey. They could not be farther from each other. And quite interesting to also see that, this myth of the kind President Lincoln, without knowing that, hey, if Lincoln had it his way, blacks would have been sent to Africa. And that's what happened around the entire, most of the North. Washington, D.C., slave owners in Washington, D.C., which remained a slave area until 1863, were paid quite a bit of money that they would actually give the slave masters. They would take their slaves in D.C. and they would ship them to either Haiti or Liberia. And this was known as the recolonization theory. And the recolonization theory was further perpetuated by the colonization societies. A lot of Whigs and a lot of Republicans, early Republicans, were proud members of these groups. Their whole, method behind that was, okay, they're here. We got to relocate them to their country of Africa. And by doing that, we don't have to have black people in our country. And this was the early beliefs of the Republican Party, y'all. So, me being a registered Republican, because I had to register to vote in the primaries and whatnot, today's Republicans are very tone deaf on their party. The original GOP was very much pro-segregation, yet you have these conservatives that will try to say, oh, no, that's a myth. It was always the Democrats that were pro-slavery, pro-segregation, yada, yada, yada. When in reality, it was the Republicans that were pro-segregation. And they were very much, keep, blacks out of our cities. You would have the black codes of Indiana, the black codes of Illinois. New Jersey had some of the strictest segregation laws. And yet they're dead quiet on that. If any of y'all ever heard of the GAR or the Grand Army of the Republic, their, I guess current group would be the Sons of Union Veterans. The GAR oftentimes did not allow Union colored troops, aka the black soldiers of the Union Army, to attend their meetings because they were segregated. But if you look down south with the Confederate reunions, they were always fully integrated and included Hispanics, blacks, Native Americans, and even women who served in the Confederacy, versus up north, and that was not the case with the Sons of Union Veterans. Quite interesting. So here's what's really interesting. A recently uncovered document has proven without a doubt that Abraham Lincoln himself owned and had slaves sold. The following document is in the Regenstein Library of the University of Chicago, entitled Lincoln's Order to Sell His Slaves. Answer to R.E. Edwards, etc. Oldham, Todd and Company, 1850. And that is a copy of the letter right there. So I'm curious to know essentially how today's, Republicans, even today's liberals that just love Lincoln are going to kind of come to grasp with this. Because ultimately, more or less, this whole Democrat-Republic party system is two wings of the same bird. But it's kind of interesting how both of them in some ways will use the slavery narrative, will use CRT, and will use the the righteous cause myth, aka the Yankee myth. So we go down here and we see in the letter, it explains that little deal that transpired. Kevin Orland Johnson, the author of The Lincolns in the White House, found this piece of history in a dusty box at the Regenstein Library of the University of Chicago, unsurprisingly uncatalogued since it was bequeathed to the library in 1930. The affidavit was written in 1850 by the Lincoln family's attorneys, Kincaid and Breckinridge. It is Lincoln's answer to a bill in the Chancery filed in Fayette County about the disposition of property that the couple had inherited from Robert Todd, Abraham Lincoln's father-in-law. It certifies that Lincoln and his wife are willing that the slaves mentioned in the bill shall be sold on such terms as the court may think advisable. We knew that when Lincoln married Mary Todd, he inherited slaves from her father's estate, but up until recently, we only assumed that he sold them. In fact, that Mr. Lincoln had inherited slaves and did not free them, as so many would assume, but profited by having them sold back into slavery. Now, to the naysayers and Lincoln worshippers who currently have a candle lit by his effigy, you might say this was 1850. Lincoln was a changed man by the time of the Civil War. Was he, though? As I previously stated, up until his death, he was in favor of repatriating the free blacks back to Africa. We also know that after the first state seceded in 1861, Lincoln sent letters to the state governors telling them he supported the Corwin Amendment, a northern proposed measure that would have permanently protected slavery within the U.S. Constitution. Sure, there are plenty of political anti-slavery quotes by Lincoln, but don't actions speak louder than words? If they do, then we must take these pieces of evidence and judge the man accordingly. And all the wonderful sources right there. And Mr. Miller does a fantastic job at writing history as well as, educating the young and, giving out great resources to college students, families, and all that. So it's really a good blog and a good store, and I am super proud of Matt and really love his writing. He does a great podcast as well, which I'm hoping to get him on here someday. So it was quite interesting to see all that. I'm curious, though, the Lincolnites, they just kind of casually ignore that. And, notice how Lincoln did this all under the USA flag. So are the, Lincoln lovers going to say now, cancel the federal flag? Quite interesting, don't you all think? So I definitely enjoy, presenting on this and, teaching about this, because it's quite interesting to see how this is the other side of history that's kind of hidden. Now, the other interesting thing about Lincoln is that, for those of us that actually study history and who know the real history of the war between the states, people in the South know that Lincoln was at the very least bisexual. Well, a film is actually going to be doing a documentary on this, and Republicans, I should say, not even conservatives, because true conservatives tend not to like Lincoln. Republicans are absolutely outraged. They're going like, "Oh my gosh, why is he? Why is this company doing this?" And yada yada yada. And what they tend to forget is Lincoln was indeed at the very least bisexual. He had written some very fruity letters. He was very too inappropriate with a lawyer that he had worked with. And that is all, known history. But this documentary is going to be exploring that, which I think is comical. They're probably going to try to make it into a love story, which will be even more comical to see how the right and the left react to that. So, here we have one of America's most controversial presidents because he is loved by typically the North. New Jersey does not like Lincoln. Delaware, it's a hit or a miss. Maryland, again, half and half. Most of the South cannot stand Lincoln. So, we do a little bit more than Lincoln bashing here. We actually give the history on why Lincoln was not a good president, nor was he fit for office at the time. Kind of ironic, though, that Lincoln, did all these actions. There's also a theory as well that Mary Todd might have had syphilis. Another interesting theory that John Wilkes Booth might have had syphilis as well. So quite an interesting time back then. That's right. Make sure y'all are sharing. We have such a good podcast. We're also having a John Wilkes Booth dinner coming up in New Jersey, so it'll be pretty exciting. It's going to be hosted by the New Jersey Flaggers, and they're getting a venue set up. There's going to be a very nice raffle for a battle flag that was provided by the Confederate shop. So we're going to have a really cool raffle for that, as well as several other items that will go to help preserve our Confederate history for years to come. And we also are hopefully getting another flaggers group started in Delaware. So that will be really cool. And the goal of the Delaware Flaggers will be, again, to get the history out there, to continue to offer support for the Delaware Memorial, and to educate the public. Y'all, it's really funny when we get trolls and you don't give them time of day and they actually can't spell or write correctly. Pretty darn funny if you ask me. And we also have a really good event coming up. For those that don't know, the Fame Preservation Group is having a great meeting in 2 weeks. So the Fame Preservation Group is doing their barbecue. Monuments Across Dixie will be speaking at this barbecue. It is in North Carolina. And we're having quite a few Patriots come to this event. So here is the link for this website. And I really hope that y'all can come to this great event. Some of the best Patriots are going to be there, and we're going to have a lot of good items for sale as well. It's a great place to go there and to get battle flags and, some nice Confederate merchandise. They're going to have some raffles, I believe. And after, we are going to go visit the Fame Memorial that was removed and put into a cemetery. And this is FPG, or the Fame Preservation Group. And if you all go to events right here, August 17th, 2024, it's at the Stars and Bars Tavern. So we're going to have some great people there. That's a picture of the map right there. The Stars and Bars Tavern is a great restaurant. It's so beautiful inside. I really like how they have, all the flags of the Confederacy inside. And it's quite interesting when you go there just to see how much the heritage is loved in North Carolina. You're driving to North Carolina and you're seeing battle flags on the highway. You're seeing the first national flag. You're seeing the second national. I saw the unreconstructed North Carolina flag. That was pretty awesome to see. And I got to say, the food was delicious. I was there last time as a keynote speaker, and we had a great time, and I just enjoyed every minute of it. We're also going to have my buddy, Mr. Braxton Spivey. I call him the South Carolina flagger. So he goes out with a group of amazing people in Charleston, and they flag at the Battery every Sunday, and they are loved by everybody there. I mean, tourists come up to them, and they're very proud that Charleston, South Carolina is proud of its Confederate history. So we're going to have the Tar Heel Flaggers as well. It's going to be a speaker there. We're going to have Lambeth Creative Designs, the D Stroud Photography, Rowan Rifles, Camp 405, the Smack Shop, and Southern Independence Association are the paid sponsors. So quite a good event going on there. And Mr. Braxton Spivey, of course, everybody's favorite General Lee reenactor. He does a fantastic job of bringing General Lee to life. He is always really proud of his Southern roots, and he is just an unapologetic, true Southern gentleman. And I'm really excited about this, y'all, because I've noticed that in the last few years, it should really say something about America that more young people are getting involved in the heritage protection groups. More younger people are taking a stand and fighting back against this, anti-history, anti-heritage rhetoric. And that really speaks volumes that people have had enough with the memorial removal and desecration of our American history. I mean, there was people that when this started, they, didn't think anything was wrong with this. Now you're seeing people say enough is enough. And shockingly, some of our biggest supporters that we've had for what we do with our heritage stuff in Delaware and in New Jersey are from New York State. And it's quite impressive that if you go to New York State, you will see Confederate battle flags flying all over. They've got quite a few Confederate cemeteries in New York State, as well as monuments, and they are darn proud of their history up there. So that was pretty cool to see. Same with seeing Confederate support from Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and out west as well. Even California. That was quite impressive to know that California has quite a bit of Confederate supporters out there. And of course, it's after the war between the states, people were poor. So a lot of Southerners tried to move west, move north, try to find a better life. Other people, moved north and went south, and vice versa. So quite interesting to see how the heritage had migrated with them. That we ourselves are living, breathing monuments. When I got my, arm tattoo, kind of hard to see, but it's the Sons of Confederate Veterans logo. That was something I considered. You know what? I'm a proud monument. I'm proud of my heritage. I got nothing to hide. So, I walk around. Everybody loves a tattoo. I get a lot of thumbs up, a lot of smiles. People really love the heritage. All right, y'all. So we are getting close to that hour mark. So again, we'll be live on Thursday night with probably a panel discussion. It might be a little late, but hopefully we'll be live on time. We are the #1 Confederate resource here. We go live on several pages. We go live on History Reminds Us, as well as Monuments Across Dixie, News and Travel, and we go live on X as well. So enjoy, y'all. Y'all have a fantastic week, fantastic Monday, and I will see y'all on Thursday. Share this video and get the word out there that we are proud of our heritage. Deo Vindice, y'all.